We're gonna keep moving. We are bringing up a wonderful, lovely woman. I only got like 5 seconds before the show to talk to her. I don't know her either, but I just can feel her awesomeness radiating from the moment she walked in the room. So we're gonna give it up to a nice young lady who is from Akron, Ohio. We got a lot of people from Ohio tonight. It says her year is 10-yeared. I can think that's kind of like tenured. Yeah, hey, I got it. Major, it says major, question mark. Favorite superhero, she has 2. Elizabeth Salander, excuse me, and Ellen Ripley, okay? You say what? Ellen Ripley. All right, I got it right this time. All right, so we're going to bring to the stage Dr. Heather Neff. Give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Siobhan. All right, and thanks to Decky. I wouldn't have done this if not for Decky.
Thank you. I'm
Tonight's program is about leaps and bounds. All my life I've heard it told that when you're falling toward your death, your life passes in front of your eyes. I always thought that was bullshit. But it's not. 29 years and 1 day ago, I moved to Switzerland with a man I had met 6 weeks earlier on the steps of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. We liked each other instantly, thought we had a lot in common, but before we left the United States, I said to him, if you take me with you, you're going to discover things about your culture and your friends and your family that you really don't want to know. He said, no, we are Swiss. We are neutral. We are good people. We never start wars. And I said, baby, you're going to discover some things you don't want to know. But he assured me, and I was willing to believe. So I went with him. And it was so much worse than anything I expected. Now, I grew up in the 1960s in Akron, Ohio, and I was the daughter of an Episcopal priest and a teacher. Both of them were civil rights activists, and in 1964, my parents moved our small family from a predominantly black neighborhood in Akron to an all-white suburb for the express purpose of fucking the suburb up. My dad was like that. And I should preface that remark because I think it helps you understand a little bit more about the family. The year before, my father had gone to the March on Washington, and he wasn't too far from the Lincoln Monument when Dr. King gave the I Have a Dream speech. We didn't know that at the time, but when he died in 1995, I found an old roll of film and had it developed, and to my shock, there were the pictures from the March on Washington in August of '63, and I could see how close he was to Dr. King. He had become infected with Dr. King's belief that we truly were created equal and that it was incumbent upon all of us to do our job to bring racial equality to this nation. So in '64, he moved the family to the burbs, and people did a lot of bad things to try to get us out. They threw cinder blocks through our living room window repeatedly. They tried to fool with the gas meters and gas the family in our sleep. My father was afraid for me to walk to school, so he drove me to school, picked me up at lunch, drove me back, picked me up at 3 o'clock, and slept with a gun under his pillow. We're talking the minister here, right? I grew up as the only black child in an all-white neighborhood, and I knew how to do isolation. I knew how to be a great student, great athlete, real cool kid, by myself. Some kids were welcoming, some neighbors were welcoming, but the ones who weren't welcoming were not welcoming with a vengeance. So when I met my future husband on the steps of the Capitol building and told him I would go to Switzerland with him, but that he was going to see a side of Switzerland that he didn't want to see, I knew what I was talking about. And sure enough, when we got there, I found myself in a place where I could go for 2 weeks, 3 weeks without seeing another person of color. What was worse was that the only women of color in Switzerland, unfortunately, seemed to have been women who had been borrowed from Thailand or the Philippines, Brazil, or some starving nation in sub-Saharan Africa. And the majority of those women were dancing in strip clubs. So although I was there, at the university, earning an advanced graduate degree, with a legitimate Swiss guy, thinking about getting married, when I walked down the street, Swiss men followed me. And if I turned into a corner, or if I didn't walk fast enough, they tried to proposition me, and it went on day and night. My husband's family didn't know what to make of me, but I'll tell you this, just to give you a snapshot of the family. One day his father, who was an auto mechanic, came to me and said, "You know, Heather, Universitätsstudenten sind Parasiten auf dem Rücken des Arbeitersklasse," which means university students are parasites on the back of the working class. That's my father-in-law. So you can imagine that in order to survive Switzerland, I called upon all the tools, all the things I had learned in a very isolated childhood to make myself big and bad. I bought myself a motorcycle jacket, a man's motorcycle jacket, and some black jeans and a black turtleneck. I've been wearing black jeans and turtlenecks since before you guys were born. And a black beret. When I put on my beret and turned up the collar of my motorcycle jacket, wasn't no man in Switzerland thinking I was a stripper. In fact, they thought I was a terrorist before we even knew what the meaning of the word was. I liked it like that. But it took an extraordinary toll on me emotionally. It's sort of like if you leave your cell phone on and you have vibrate on and you have 40 applications and your phone is ringing all day, and you know, you charge it and 20 minutes later it's down to 20%. That's what a day in my life was like. I'd leave the house every morning ready to kill anybody who looked sideways at me. By the end of the day, it's half dead. But I started doing it in 1983 and kept pushing forward. But you wanted to hear about me falling and the life, yeah, okay. After living in Switzerland for 2 years, my husband and I, by this time we're married, heard about a strange thing. An organization called Swiss Afro. The only people who were allowed to participate were Swiss people who were married or in a relationship with someone of African descent. That meant that the partner could come from anywhere in Africa, anywhere in the United States, as long as they were black, anywhere in South America or the Caribbean. The other partner had to be Swiss. And we were told that every year this organization had a kind of conference, and that all the Swiss Afro families in Switzerland would gather up in the Swiss mountains, high up in the mountains, at a conference center, and that for 48 hours, no one would look at us, no men would follow us, no one would mock us on the streets, no one would question our intelligence, no one would mistreat us in any way, shape, or form. And very skeptically and very cynically, I agreed to go. You know, I wish I could think of some artistic way to describe what it felt like to be surrounded with people who were every rainbow color under the sun, whose children were the oddest and most beautiful combinations of races that you can humanly imagine. In one family, there'd be kids with 8 different colors, hair textures, eye colors. It was extraordinary. No politics, no religion, no nonsense, just be kind to each other for a weekend. I didn't know what to do with myself. It was the first time in a long time that I felt really safe. So, the second night of the conference, I got blasted. They had a party in a large auditorium. They were playing music from all over the African diaspora. Man, they would have some Afrobeat, and it would be followed by some Brazilian samba. Then they'd put on some James Brown, then there'd be some Fela. It was wild. And everybody's out there dancing with everybody. It didn't matter if you were married, didn't matter if you were boyfriend, everybody, because you know, like we were like family. It was like, no, but nobody looking at nobody like, yeah, you're looking at your man, you know, none of that stuff going down. People were just like, we are safe. You know, we are safe. So we're dancing and we're dancing. Gets to be 2 in the morning, I'm drinking, I'm dancing. Gets to be 3, I'm drinking, I'm dancing. Gets to be about 4:30 and I look around and my husband's gone. He just like went to bed, he's gone. And I start thinking, you know what, he's probably gonna be mad at me if I stay in here too much longer, because you know, you can stretch a good thing too far. So I decided to leave the auditorium and I went outside. Took one step out of the auditorium and discovered for the first time in my life what true nighttime looks like. Now, I grew up in Akron and then Detroit. I lived in big cities my whole life. I'd never been anywhere where there wasn't a clock or a light or, you know, a street lamp. I'm standing up in the middle of the goddamn Alps, drunk. And the blackness was so total. The blackness was so black. And there wasn't a light anywhere. And I'm drunk. So I say to myself, okay, I vaguely remember from daylight, somewhere over there, way over there, there's some dormitories where my room and my bed is, and I got to get from here to there. But I know there's something about the size of a football field, and all I have to do is get there. So I'm, all right, I'll make it. I'll be cool. You know, I'm drunk. So I start walking, and it's real warm, and it's real dark, and it's real black. And at first I'm like, oh, I'm in the Alps. Nothing gonna happen to me in the Alps. You know, the criminals in the Alps. Everything's cool in the Alps. Then I start thinking, wait a minute now. I'm in Switzerland and I'm black. So maybe it's not quite as safe as I wanted to be. And these mountain people up here, they've never seen one of me before. So maybe I better walk a little faster because you never know what might happen. And oh my God, they got Klan here too. They got Klan in the States in the Alps. Maybe I better keep going because the Alps is another word for Appalachia. So suddenly I'm running. I'm running as fast as my little black feet can carry me and I'm drunk. So that's really fast, you know. I am running, I am running, I am running, I am running. I don't know where I'm going because there's no light. I'm just running. I am running. And suddenly, my foot hits something. And I'm leaping. Like an Olympian in the long jump. And my legs are still running. Like, you know how when they do the long jump in the Olympics and they're like doing like this and they're flying 24 feet? I'm doing that. And then I saw it all. I remember my first memory of preschool. I remember when my dad got mad and spanked me with a switch. I remember when my mom taught me how to set the table. I remember kindergarten. I remember 3rd grade. But chiefly I remember that in daylight, there was a playground there with metal steel bars everywhere. So while I'm thinking about that time when Billy Carr spat on me in 2nd grade, I'm also remembering that if I hit my head on the metal bar, I'm going to die, and my mother's not going to know where I am, because I'm somewhere in the Alps of Switzerland. You know, I was probably only in the air about 5 seconds, but it felt like 5 years. And I remember every detail of how the wind sounded in my ears, how my hair felt with the sweat plastered along here, the smell of that perspiration with the stale perfume of dancing. Somewhere in the back of my head, I could still hear the beat of the music in the auditorium. And I thought about all the things I had planned to do with my life, and this nice young man I had just married, and all the Afro-Swiss people I had just met. And I was absolutely at peace with the fact that I was going to die. And then I hit the ground in the softest, coolest, gentlest way possible. I reached out with my hands, unbelieving. I'm thinking, I must be dead. I must be dead. It couldn't feel this good to land. And when I pulled my fingers up, something flowed through my hands. I had landed in the sandbox. And I knew that moment that everything was going to be okay.